Welcome to Fear and Greed Sunday feature. I'm Michael Thompson. How about this for an Aussie success story? In 2013, three mates decided to start their own gin distillery. They called it Four Pillars, and it went from strength to strength, first here in Australia, then overseas, and pretty much won every award possible. Then in 2019, they sold half the business to global drinks giant Lion. Last year, they sold the other half to Lion as well for a figure believed to be around $50 million. In between those two events, we spoke to one of the three co-founders, Stuart Gregor. Now, this interview by Sean Aylmer was recorded back in December of 2020, so right in the middle of the pandemic. It is a great chat. It is a terrific success story. I hope you enjoy it.
Regular listeners would have heard me recently mention Four Pillars Gin. It's an Australian company, and I spoke of them because they were named International Gin Producer of the Year at the International Wine and Spirits Competition. And what makes it even more impressive is the fact that they've won the title for 2 years in a row. It's quite a remarkable story considering the business was only founded in 2013 by three mates, and since then has gone on to become a favourite Australian brand and an international success. I'm pleased to say one of the founders of Four Pillars Gin is my guest this morning. Stuart Gregor, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Oh, g'day, Sean. It's lovely to chat to you again.
It's been a while.
It has been quite some time.
Congratulations on the win. I mean, to win it once could be a fluke, but twice, not bad.
Yes, I could use a much well-worn golfing analogy that I like to tell people that, to win it once, my theory to win it once is that the world is littered with people who've got lucky. I'm not necessarily referencing Stephen Bradbury here, but I could be referencing Bob Tway or someone who won maybe one Grand Slam. But I think, look, when you win it a second time, particularly in consecutive years, I think, to use a racing parlance, I think it franks the form. I think it shows that you just didn't get lucky. I mean, it's a hugely competitive. It's the biggest spirits competition in the world. It's run out of London. And sometimes, you can just sort of sneak your way through, get a couple of lucky gold medals and maybe pop a win. But I think to go back to back, particularly in this year where, it's been such an impossibly crazy year, for us to win it again, I genuinely, think I'm more excited about doing this than it was last year, because this, for us, says that, we're now on the world stage. We're now making it the best gins in the world. And, we can proudly say that rather than, we fluked one in 2019 before the world capped itself.
Yeah, true. So tell me the Four Pillars story, or tell our listeners the Four Pillars story.
Look, it probably dates back to the late 90s. So, I mean, Cameron McKenzie and I first met in 1999. So Cameron is our head distiller and the co-founder of the business. And we met in the late 90s when he'd run in the 96 Olympics in Atlanta for Australia in the 4x4. And he was on an Olympic scholarship with the intention that he would run in the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. And he failed to qualify by one spot. He made the national finals in the 400. They took the first five and he failed to qualify. He blames coming to work for me as the reason he never qualified, because he missed on the first day he came to work for me, we were both working for a wine business at the time called Mildara Blas, which is today Treasury Wine Estates, which I imagine everyone knows. Not travelling that beautifully at the moment, given the China situation.
No, that's true.
But he came to work for me and he missed his first ever training session. So I've been guilt-riddled for 20 years, basically, about him not making his second Olympics. Because you know what I said about guys who make one Olympics, that's lucky. But if he'd made a second Olympics, he would have been an actual, a bit of a legend.
Superstar.
So I've always felt guilty about that. So we started making wine together in 2002. We became great mates. I was living in Melbourne. He was living up in the Yarra Valley. He worked for lots of great production businesses in the Yarra. I was sort of doing lots of marketing and PR. And we probably decided 10 years ago or 8 or 9 years ago, back 2011, 2012, what if we made gin? We drank a lot of gin. We were making some wine and, it was pretty good wine, but it wasn't something that was, it was just too competitive and the climate's a bit stuffed and we couldn't really figure out our way. And we met a guy called Matt Jones, who's the guy who's a brand strategist and a big picture sort of digital guy. And he helped us pull it all together because, frankly, Cameron and I, whilst enthusiastic and great drinkers of gin, we really needed someone to pull it all together. So when Matt joined us in the start of 2013, we thought we'll give this a crack. We raised a bit of money. We found a beautiful building that we could distill in Healesville, right in the heart of the Yarra Valley. We made our first gins in December 2013, and that was the thing called Rare Dry Gin, which was always going to be a gin and tonic gin.
Yep.
And subsequent to that, we've, done a few really fun innovations, with Bloody Shiraz gin and, a gin that just goes into Negronis, all that sort of stuff. And, the business has just slowly grown. It's been a pretty great journey. And then obviously last year in March, our mates at Lion bought half the business. So yeah, we've had a pretty good time.
So we'll get there, but was there some moment that you thought we could be onto something?
You know what? There was. It was April 2014. So I reckon we'd been in the business maybe 5 months. And the World Spirits, so the two biggest competitions in the world, one's run out of San Francisco called the International Spirits Challenge. And we won a double gold in that, which meant every judge had given us a gold medal for our rare dry gin. I didn't even know Cameron had entered it. We basically just entered it in order for some judge to say, yes, tastes like gin, thumbs up, bronze, or something like that. But and that got us.
I'm finding this a very amusing conversation so far, Stuart. It's great. Keep it going. I'm just going to shut up.
Well, anyway, what that did is it got a lot of people internationally interested in it, because there weren't many. When we started, I reckon there was probably single-digit numbers of Australian distilleries making gin. There was a fairly nascent but interesting Tasmanian whiskey industry, but there weren't that many people making gin in Australia. Today, there's over 250 distilleries in Australia making gin, right? And I reckon it was less than 12 when we started in 2013. So I guess in many ways we triggered that interest in the Australian gin category. We had set ourselves up pretty professionally to grow and to be a serious player. We didn't ever want to just be a hobby cottage industry, just based out of the Yarra. We really we had global ambitions from the get-go. We started getting some international inquiries there. We're probably in 30-odd markets around the world now, and things have, just continued to grow. But that moment in early 2014 was the start, I reckon.
Stay with me, Stuart. We'll be back in a moment. I'm speaking to Stuart Gregor, co-founder of Four Pillars Gin. Why is gin so popular all of a sudden? I've never been a gin drinker until the last 2 years, and then I'm a regular gin drinker. I'm not sure what's happened to the world, but gin seems to be the drink of choice at the moment.
Well, I mean, I turned up, Sean, frankly, and before that, it was a fairly desultory category full of boring old brands, and then along comes Four Pillars. No, look, gin is having this renaissance for a couple of reasons. One is that it's aligned with a few things. The cocktail renaissance, right? The small bar renaissance, or the small bar birth, basically, in Australia, where only 10 years ago there were not many cocktail bars in Sydney. There were a few in Melbourne. And if you have a cocktail bar, a small bar, and you're going to make great drinks, gin is going to be the base of a lot of those drinks, whether it's a Negroni or a Martini or a Gimlet or a Southside or a London Calling, whatever. So many of the great cocktail drinks are gin. So many people have tried gin for the first time by going to one of these new small bars, whether it's in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, wherever else in Australia. But this is also happening everywhere around the world. People are rediscovering the gin and tonic for two reasons. One is that they're using better gin. So they're finding, basically a gin and tonic up until 10 years ago was Gordon's and Schweppes.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yep.
And if you didn't like Gordon's or Schweppes, and let's be frank, not a lot of people liked either. Certainly very few people, other than my mother, liked both. So once you've got a gin that had some native botanicals, and gin can represent a place. So we use botanicals, Australian botanicals, whether it's lemon myrtle or Tasmanian pepperberry or finger limes. So our gin doesn't taste like a London dry gin that might be Beefeater or Bombay and Hendrick's played a huge part in this as well. Because when Hendrick's was created only in the early 2000s, it made gin a bit quirky and a bit cool, and all of a sudden you stuck a cucumber in it because they use these cucumber essence and rose essence, and people said, oh my God, all gin doesn't have to taste like Gordon's. I'm not disparaging Gordon's, but
no.
Oh gosh, gin can have all these other amazing botanicals in it, and because frankly vodka is vodka, which is essentially a vector for cranberry juice, right? Vodka has no flavour. It's essentially just there to play its functional role.
18-year-old joy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So gins from California and gins from Australia or New Zealand, or, we're doing a little bit of we've done collaborations with gin distilleries in Kyoto, one in Härnösand, which is 400 kilometres north of Stockholm in Sweden, and we've done one with a distillery in Madrid. All making beautiful, interesting gins using some of their local botanicals. So, it's become a truly international phenomenon. And to give you a sense of the growth, I was talking to someone at Dan Murphy's the other day. 5 years ago, so 2015, the vodka category was 4 times the size of the gin category. It's now 1-to-1.
Wow.
So vodka stayed pretty much flat, but people are getting into gin, the flavours, it's an exciting category.
So if I want to taste red wines or white wines, I can do that, and I kind of understand how to do that. The thing about gin in the last couple of years, as I've developed my palate for it, shall I say, What I tend to do is go to the shop and buy on price a little bit because I think more expensive gin is worth it. And certainly I buy on reputation. Is there such a thing as a gin tasting? How do I work out? Because I've even tried flavoured gins, which are probably less to my liking. Your Shiraz gin is great. How do you get across all this? Is it just a matter of buying and drinking sort of thing? But is there such a thing as gin tastings, that type of stuff?
Well, I'm never going to make you feel disinclined to buying more gin. It's quite good for my business. But yeah, look, we do little masterclasses both here in Sydney. So I'm in the Surrey Hills. We've got a little new laboratory on Crown Street in Surrey Hills. We've also got our distillery down in Hillsville. And we do literally hundreds of gin tastings a year, little mini masterclasses where people come and they taste four Pillars gins, all taste ostensibly different, yet they're all made by the same distillery. And they go, well, this one's got, olive oil and olive leaf as a botanical. This one's got oranges and, star anise, and this one's got, and people can just tell the difference straight away. And there's this light bulb moment for so many people when they taste two or three gins that they probably would have thought, oh, they're all just going to taste the same. And they go, oh no, I like that one because that's super spicy, or I like that one because that's a more savoury style that I might put into a martini. So, and then I've got the purple one, the one that's soaked in Shiraz grapes. So I think people are realising that they don't have to like all gin as a category, but they can like some gins. And Australia is probably, I reckon, pound for pound making the best quality gins at the moment. I reckon we're somewhere like where we were in the Aussie wine industry in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah, right.
People are starting to realise we're very small. On a global scale, we're all tiny. We're the biggest gin producer in Australia, but globally we're still, we're not even half of 1% of the gin market. But there are some stunning gins coming out of Australia, whether it's from Never Never in South Australia or, 78 also in South Australia. Some of the guys in Tassie are making great gins. It's a really exciting category right now.
So you sold half the business to Lion last year.
Yep.
What's that mean for global growth?
Look, it actually, interestingly, probably means more for domestic growth than it does globally because Lion have such a great footprint across Australia domestically. It's meant that our sales force, so we work in partnership with a wholesale distributor that Lion also bought half of their business. And it means that we've been able to totally retool that business, professionalise that business. We've got 2.5 times more staff just representing it. So I'm talking about just selling it into regional bottle shops and all sorts of different bars and, banners in Western Australia and South Australia. Because one of the things that the big companies have over little guys like us is just the power of the sales force, that they can go and sell to all the regions and all the country towns in Australia, all the rural properties, all the banner groups, all the big retailers. So we've become more competitive in that regard. So, 4 Pillars is now simply more available in more stores and behind more bars than we were before Lion came along. And they have, Kieran and Lion have a really interesting international business. They've got a great bourbon distillery called Four Roses over in Kentucky. They've got an increasingly interesting craft beer business in the US as well. So, yeah, look, we're finding our way with them internationally, but they've really helped us unbelievably domestically. And the fact of the matter is that I would say this, so take it with a grain of salt, but they're really good people and they've kept out of our way. They know that they're great at beer and craft beer, but they're happy to learn from us when it comes to spirits because they figure. I think it's a bit of a maturity in terms of corporates buying small businesses. Maybe 10 or 20 years ago, they would have come in and put all their systems in place and all of their ways of doing things and sort of rolled their eyes when the little startup guys were like, well, that's not the way we do it here. I think these days they've learned a lot from that and they're really letting us run our own show. I mean, I'm here. I'm still on the tools every day.
Fantastic. Stay right there. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Stuart Gregor, co-founder of 4 Pillars Gin. So what next for 4 Pillars then?
We just opened, as you would, we opened a thing called the 4 Pillars Laboratory up in Surrey Hills. We opened that in June, which is just a spectacular time to be opening a bar, obviously. So we've got a bar and a little educational area where we do masterclasses. I'll probably do 5 or 8 masterclasses this week in this bar in Surrey Hills. We're going to do some more collabs when we can travel again. We always love making amazing gins with distillers who've got sort of like minds with us offshore. So we're going to do a fun one. We're trying to make a gin via Zoom at the moment. Not, funnily enough, not one of the easier things to do, but we've got an idea of making a gin via Zoom with a distillery in southern India, which is going to be really exciting. And more of the same. We want more. Look, we want to I mean, I had this great plan last year because basically my job used to just be fly around the world and flog gin to people. Like I literally had the best job in the world until this year, although it's still a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And I had this plan to take the trophy to every market we were available in, the big trophy. It hasn't even yet got to Queensland.
So, they're tough up there. Those borders, though. Anastasia Palaszczuk.
So I'm hoping to get to Queensland next year. That's my big goal. And maybe across to South Australia. But no, we want to share
almost global domination. Almost.
Yeah. I want to share as much of our gin as I possibly can with as many people as we can, have as much fun as possible, keep making really beautiful, luxurious, delicious gin. And I would love the Australian, gin. I think we're on the cusp of something really exciting in spirits in Australia. If we could just get the excise situation resolved with the government, because we pay more for our spirits in this country than any country other than Norway and Iceland, where they have incredibly high excise rates. So if we could just get that figured out to give some of these small distilleries a go, I reckon we're in a very exciting place, and particularly with the wine industry facing the troubles it is facing right now.
Yeah, opportunity.
Spirits could be a real opportunity for us to earn a lot of export dollars, also employ a lot of people in regional and rural Australia. So yeah, there's a lot that can be done. It's going to be a fun couple of years.
How do you drink your gin?
Well, right now, I don't. I take my gin, I'm going to trademark a gin sonic, right? It's half tonic and half soda, right? So just basically, you can taste a little bit more of the gin. So if I have my rare dry gin, I have Fever Tree tonic, which is beautiful Mediterranean tonic. I stick an orange in it, and then I stick about half tonic, half soda. So it's a little lower in calories, and you just get to taste the gin a wee bit more. So that's how I take mine. Or I just love a martini with our olive leaf gin. It honestly can't be bettered. Although, that 2 martini rule, I think we're going to have to instigate, especially for me, because if I have a third martini, it's not good for anyone. It's not good for business. Trust me.
Stuart, thanks for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thanks heaps, Sean.
That was Stuart Gregor, founder of 4 Pillars Gin.